But tell people if you were sitting there, and a lot of folks feel like Democrats aren't fighting, what would be your vision, your strategy, if you were representing this district in Congress?
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. We are standing in a tumultuous, critical moment in our nation's trajectory. And one that I've heard people say, just lay back and let them self-destruct. And I don't think that that's the answer. I think you've got to stand up in a moment like this, and you've got to be strategic, you've got to be forward-looking, and you've got to be innovative in your approach. I think what's really required is for someone to have the energy, the fresh perspective, innovative solutions to combat a lot of what is innovative coming from the president's office. Issuing all of these executive orders, just gutting the Department of Ed, trying to claw back the progress that was made with prescription drug prices for seniors under Medicare negotiations. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And sadly, this was a strategic effort by the president to overwhelm the American public with chaos. And so, in order for you then to be overwhelmed and then disengage. And then once you are disengaged, then the plan is to do more. And to continue down this Project 2025 pathway, which is all documented in Project 2025, as you know.
Hmm.
But what we need at this moment is somebody who's going to have the energy, the fresh perspective, and the innovative solutions to play strategic defense. But also at the same time, we got to play offense as well. There is an agenda that still needs to be accomplished for our community, one that involves everybody having the opportunity to thrive in their community. And that means economic opportunity. How do we make sure we've got a proactive agenda for that? Whether that means healthcare access. How do we make sure we're increasing access rather than taking it away? Whether that means education. We don't want our kids just being prepared for today's jobs. We need them to be prepared for tomorrow's jobs because that's what's going to matter. There's so many just fundamental, as I call them, meat and potatoes issues that are being destroyed as we speak, that you need somebody who's going to have the fire, who's going to have the energy, but then who's going to have the experience to be able to effectuate a plan to get these things done in difficult circumstances. I hail from not right down not too far down the road from where Congressman Green represents his district. And of course, you recall he stood up
Yes.
and he brought attention to the fact that Medicaid was a part of those proposed cuts. Many people were not paying attention to it. Why? Because they've been overwhelmed, because they've said, I got to turn that TV off. It's too stressful. It's getting my blood pressure up. I can't follow this. It's too much. And so we've got to help re-engage our public. We've got to hear them out. I know that people are still feeling disconnected since the presidential election did not go the way that many of us had intended. We've got to learn the lessons from that experience. Why did people stay home? Listen to them, engage them, and we've got to be ready for this leg because it's going to take a lot of energy, a lot of tenacity, and some real innovative, creative thought around how to get this done.
But let me ask you this. I feel like Democrats really struggle with tackling what I call Southern Strategy 2.0 tactics. Once upon a time, it was the welfare queen narrative. It was the Willie Horton ad. And now we, of course, have the DEI and the CRT bull. But this language around immigrants and trans people, I don't believe it was the price of eggs. I don't believe it was the economy. I believe it was that Southern Strategy 2.0 tactic to make you fear the other. What is your vision? How can Democrats fight back against hate messaging that sells and they win elections on it? Because policy isn't enough, sadly. Kamala Harris had the policies and she still lost every swing state. What are your thoughts on that?
You got it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. They pick these wedge issues that they know it's just going to be red meat to the base. And what has happened is we have now allowed more and more of our base to get picked off from that. There's not the same party loyalty as there once was, especially Gen Z. That Gen Z is like, we don't subscribe to those kind of labels.
Yep,
I,
true.
so they're not feeling a sense of I have to be someplace and start from that place. So you've got to have a different conversation. That's what I mean. You got to listen to people, engage them, and figure out how it is that we can appeal to them, understanding that you're not going to ever be 100% aligned with a person, whether that's your husband or your wife or
Hmm.
anybody. You're just never going to be 100% aligned. But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to, figure out what's most critical to your life and what bathroom someone uses, or some of the issues that have emerged as such a hot topic in terms of these issues that they've tried to really use as red meat for their base. Does that really prevent you from being able to thrive in your community? But I guarantee you, not having access to Pell Grants might, and I guarantee you, not having access to educational opportunities might. I guarantee you, not having health care that you can afford, where you've got people who are going to have to start rationing their drugs again, um, and because we've now stepped backwards in a way that is just outrageous in my opinion through his proposed executive order. So I say all that to say it's really having a deep dive, because I don't think these conclusions just came overnight with one commercial. I think this has been something that people haven't had dialogues about. They've been dismissed in having opinions that are different from the party's mainstream beliefs, and then therefore they feel disconnected and they stay at home. We got to bring them back. Your math has to work in order for you to be able to win. And Karl Rove realized that, and when he realized that, and it was no longer just fiscal conservatives, it was all of a sudden you had fiscal conservatives and then evangelical Christians added
Mm,
together, and they weren't the party before, but he recognized he had a math problem. And so in our
mm.
case, we're losing people that we assumed would be with us on some of the wedge issues that the Republicans have flagged. And so how do we bring them back, and engage them in a way where they still feel respected, but at the same time have them appreciate that you may not have full alignment, but it's not worth saying, well, let's blow up the status quo so we can get something worse, just so that I can send a message or so I can prove a point. Because guess what? We all have to live in this country now that you've proven your point, or sent
Mm.
your message, or communicated by your non-vote. And so we've heard you. So let's have a conversation about how do we regain your support? Because again, the things like you said, price of eggs, I haven't heard anybody talking about price of eggs, and it's sky high, much
Yeah.
higher than it was under the Biden administration. So what is it really? And it,
What is it
those
really?
those wedge issues, I think, went a long way in the 2024 presidential cycle. But what can we do as Democrats to stop that bleeding, bring people back, have them refocus? A lot of this is psychology in terms of what is motivating people to vote. And a lot of voting behavior is actually emotional, and not necessarily just what is in my own best interest. So we try to apply logic where sometimes it's how people feel about something. So we've got to listen to how they feel and figure out how we can also highlight some other things they might have stronger feelings about and bring them back in.